Now we're all here in front of this war memorial in a lovely churchyard in England, UK, and I'm in Hampshire, which is one of the lower counties, and I'm just above Portsmouth, and there's 33 names from the First World War on this war memorial, and there's 8 from the Second World War on the other side. And well, you think about that, that's 100 years ago. There was no tea, there was just radio around, and it wasn't really a thing. So this village would have been bustling, and to lose 33 of its men out of it would have been a massive deal. And you think the people would have known them men very well. They would have known their humour, their characteristics, what they did as a pastime, whether they was good at cricket. They would have known everything about them, and suddenly they got sucked out of the village in this sacrifice. I've got a funny feeling that if we don't do something about the way our history is being eroded, that these men's efforts and sacrifice would have been for nothing. And I believe they would be very upset with the lethargy that people seem to be displaying when it comes to doing things like voting, when it comes to looking after their local community, even tidying up and keeping their war memorials in a nice condition. And I think if you have a community near you and you want to spend a bit of time with a load of lads from the pub and the lasses, go and just do a bit of gardening around and clean up the ones that have been forgotten, and say, no, we're not going to forget. We're not going to forget these people. We're going to make a statement, and we're going to put the English back in England. And I think that's the one way we can defy these people who are trying to get rid of our way of life. I hear a baby crying in the background, and it just serves to remind me of their sacrifice was for that baby to have a future. And if we go and throw that future away because we cannot be bothered to sort out this problem that's been presented to us, then we deserve everything that's coming to us. Because I think together we stand, and divided we really do fall. And I think the powers that be have been pushing us apart, putting us in little echo chambers and dividing us from our friends and family, neighbours, by putting these ideas of they're going to kill you and all sorts of crazy notions, and people fall in for it through gaslighting and other psychological techniques, which mainly come through places like the Tavistock. And it's time to recognise that, see it for what it is, and learn from it, admit that we got fooled, we got duped, and say, okay, you got me there, time to move on. Let's figure a way out of this so we can all enjoy a much brighter and better future. So, do you remember this truck? Yeah? Well, that is analogous to whoever you vote in, they have to run this truck. That's what they're going to be given to run the country with. And further to that, they're not allowed any fuel to put in it. There's no money to do it up, and the only tools they're going to be given is going to be an old pair of pliers and a screwdriver, and the screwdriver's probably been used as a chisel, so it's absolutely no use to them. So they will be allowed to have a couple of decisions, and for example, they will be allowed to choose the colour of the railings down the local park, and even then they will probably be given a 50-50 chance of which colour they're allowed. So this is why we need to change the system, and the reason it's come to this and why there's such a separation between these people and the proletariat is quite simple, and that is the majority of the people who have ended up in the position of running the country have come up through the private school situation where, you know, they've been at boarding school and everything has been done for them, everything's on tap, everything's at hand. So if they're sick, they have a matron coming in, their education's all provided for them, and the cooks are there to make sure they're well fed, and they have always experienced everything being done for them all the time. So when they find it in a position where they're wondering why the people are calling them names, they really don't understand. They have no reference point to go back to in their life to understand why the people are upset with their behaviour, because that's the way they were brought up. So it's all right pointing our fingers at them, but they know no different. So we have to take back control in a fair and just way, and that's why I think the spoiling of the ballot paper was one idea I had. But I'm more than happy to be wrong. I'm not like a politician. Being wrong is easy. All you do is say, I stand corrected. When you're proven wrong, then thank the person who corrected you. It's real simple. So that's why I think that this is a characteristic politicians do not have, and why we need to work on that to change the people who have no narcissistic issues to deal with as they go into that place. So what are we going to do next? Well, it's all right making fun of it, and I have seen the posters around, the caricatures. There's one on the notice board at the end of my road, so I looked at that and thought, oh, that's interesting. And they are funny, but there's a more serious side to this problem, and that is we need problems in our country resolving, and these people are not going to be able to do it. It doesn't matter what we vote in, the issues are far greater than what they're going to be allowed to vote for. And you've got to remember, these people don't make the decisions. These decisions are made at a much higher level, and they're the people who enact them. So the instructions are given down to these people, then they're enacted by them. So that's why it's time to put an end to this as a mass of the population just try and get their head round the size of the problem. Now, how do we get the message out? We need to change it when most people are only exposed to the biggest echo chambers, and that's the mainstream TV and all the mainstream papers. They're what's guiding the ideas into the people. Well, we do have the internet, and if we know how to share and expand our ideas together, we can come together and create a solution for everybody. Now, the idea of withdrawing our consent could work, but you need to explain that to everyone, and I don't think everyone is at that point yet. They will get there, but maybe that's why it was a snap election, because it doesn't give enough time for people to get enough information to make a grown-up decision. They're looking at the Big Brother type clown show that the politicians are offering up in this forced dichotomy choice. That's well, I suppose it's going to be a forced trichotomy now, isn't it? Looking at the way there's another entity entering his hat into the ring, and but that man cannot correct the problems. It's not in his wheelhouse. He will not have the powers, even if he got voted in. So, what are the issues we need resolving in our country? And that is what we need to focus on. So, as you can see, I have placed the Magna Carta on top of the War Memorial, and maybe that's a stark reminder that we have done this in the past, that people have contacted the powers that should not be and said, this is what our demands are, and if you don't agree to them, we're going to remove our consent. Well, I think we're past that point. I think we need to remove our consent, then proceed. That's the way I'm seeing it. So there we go. So let's move on to the next point. Yeah, I think it does need to be pointed out that the book 1984, written by George Orwell, aka Eric Blair, that should never have been a stealth manifesto by a hidden hand for other entities to enact through that place we call the Commons. That's not what it was for. It was sadly too accurate to what we experience today. So we've got to ask ourselves, what are the issues people really need resolving, and how do we resolve them in the absence of any government being able to do anything. So we the people need to withdraw our consent in a lawful way, and I think maybe by spoiling the ballot papers is a possibility, but I'm also open to any other suggestions that we get back the power and put a better situation in place. Now, I'm out of ideas. That was the only one I could come up with. If anybody else has actual ideas which are practical, which could actually work, put them in the comments and let's expand on it, and let's use this internet to find a solution to this massive problem. Because if we don't deal with it now and nip it in the bud, this is only going to escalate and get worse and worse and worse. Now, the hidden hand that has been guiding the way they want the world to run, there's not that many of them, so we can tell them to stop by the majority, and just by learning to say no. And maybe if we all say it in unison, they might hear and take note. But there's such of a a psychopathic, narcissistic way, and I don't even think that's a tautology. They really do not see it. There's been lots of accusations of whether these people are even human. I can't answer to that, but what I do know is if we want to make this world a better place, we have to do it, and that's the proletariat, the proles, as it said in 1984. We have to change it because they're not going to, and why would they? It's not to their benefit. You see my point? So moving on and recognising all the problems we've had of the past and how people from the past have overcome them problems, maybe we can learn from them and use some of the templates they've given us as an idea to move forward. And that's why I think the Magna Carta is one of them templates. Now, when they wrote the Magna Carta, it was a totally different time. The fastest thing was horseback, and it was hand notes, and it was word of mouth mainly. We have the internet now, which obviously I can make a video and it can be watched in Australia, New Zealand within a minute of me uploading it. So it's a very different time. And one of the things I think we need to lose, especially out of the control, the echelons of power, the ivory towers, is this Machiavellian ideology. This guy, the Prince, he really put a spanner in the works when this book found its way into the hands of Henry VIII, and we've been ruled with this fear-based control ever since. And I think it's time to throw this in the bin and let's go down a different way. And if anybody's got any other clean suggestions out there of how we mop this up, then I think everyone would be very grateful. But there'd be somebody out there who say, I know what we can do. And my idea of spoiling the ballot papers, if it's a no-goer, it's a no-goer, but at least it's something we can try. And I've been reading the comments, and there was one comment which said, I do not consent is the proper way of spoiling. And I thought, because in another video I said, it doesn't matter, spoiled papers is spoiled paper. Maybe he's right. Maybe that declaration is an actual statement saying I do not consent. Maybe that it's the I do not consent might need adding to. Do not consent to what? Maybe we need to be a bit more specified. Maybe we can, I know when I used to look into the common law stuff years back, if you put it in the square brackets and add the dots, the full stops, you can add to it. So maybe incorporating something like that into the statement, then we can add that idea. The interesting point is, together we stand, divided we fall. Maybe there's a way forward which none of us have thought about, and it's going to be just from that one individual that's going to share a comment and someone's going to add to it, and that's going to grow like a seed, like a tree, like a sapling, and absorb the light from the sun, and next thing we know, we have a new way of running the country. But I'm willing to accept any ideas how we stop this clown show and take some of the power back from the powers that should not be, and so we can have a brighter future for our children and our children's children, and we put the country back together. Because at the end of the day, what do we need as people? We need shelter, we need food and water, we need entertainment, we need to be a community. So a little devolution back from central control, back to the people. We can handle our own problems locally and just leave the central government to handle the central things they need to do, like the control of the infrastructure and stuff like that, where there's overlapping of counties and issues like that. There needs to be still control there, but what we also need to do is stop the silliness of war. Now, I know that's quite a statement, but at the end of the day, the people who arrange the wars, pay for the wars, aren't the people who's going to fight the wars. These are the men who die. It's not them. So what we have to do is use this internet to enlighten people to say, no, that's not our conflict. That belongs to you, the people who arranged it. So there's no point in putting your flag up thinking you're consenting to something. Stop it. Stop the war. There's no point in it. People do not need to die. We're not overpopulated. There's plenty of room for everyone. They might seem you're overpopulated when they're trying to corral you into 15-minute cities. Nonsense. Don't do it. Say no. That's the best thing you can do, is say no. Right. That's enough of me ranting and raving. for this video. So if you like this sort of thing, to my UK compadres, come and join me in the next one, where I will address a lot of the comments and a lot of the suggestions of how we can proceed forward. I'll see you there.